here in the United States. So the NBA takes a 3-day timeout. Players first decide that, yes, they are going to continue playing, but what would they like to see happen? And they spoke with Michael Jordan, who's an owner of the Charlotte franchise, and obviously a tremendous player in his own right, in his own day, had acted as